The date was September the 14th of 2001. Jonathan's phone rang. His fiancee stood within earshot, and all she could hear was a solemn tone in his voice, repeatedly responding, "Yes, sir." He gently hung up the phone and went back to sit on the couch where they had both been watching CNN. And Tammy was folding laundry and still in disbelief as she watched the footage over and over of the towers falling and as first responders dug through the rubble trying to find signs of life. "Who was that on the phone, babe?" Jonathan took her hand. He said, "Have a seat." Tammy clung to one of the towels. "No, no, no," she started to plead. "Listen, Tammy, we're going to have to delay the wedding for a while." That was my battalion commander on the phone. "My unit has been called up and we are shipping out to Iraq." "But you're just a reservist. Why are they sending your unit? Why can't they send someone else?" And she began to sob uncontrollably. And he said to her, "Listen, we've been blessed. We've been fortunate. They paid for me to go to college. We really needed the extra money that I've been able to earn by simply doing one weekend out of the month. And besides, I took an oath. I took an oath to protect this country from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Tammy, Americans were attacked right here on our soil." And at that moment, he straightened her head with his hands and focused her eyes on his. And he said, "I need you to understand something. I gotta go." I want to speak to you this morning from the title of "I Gotta Go." I wish that I could say that this is yet another metaphorical tale that I've penned where Jonathan, this dutiful soldier that we've happened upon, represents those that are called and anointed in the body of Christ. But the truth is, he really doesn't. You see, because Jonathan recognizes that a sacrifice of sorts has been made for him to enjoy a certain quality of life. A similar sacrifice was made for us, but we don't seem as duty bound and indebted to our oath as Jonathan. Many of us took an oath to be a part of the so called army of the Lord. We enlisted. We have reaped the rewards. God has kept us in good health. He has placed a hedge of protection all about us. He has even prospered many of us in the natural. He's given us spiritual and servant gifting, all for the purposes of serving in His army. It is, however, when He calls up our unit for action that we begin to vacillate and seem to forget that we took that oath. In our text today, I want to examine very quickly a prophet that you know by the name of Isaiah. And by the time we're in the book of Isaiah and arriving at chapter 6, therein we find Isaiah is responding to a six-winged angel, and he is citing one of his disqualifications. He offers that it is the equivalent of being spiritually flat footed and therefore unfit for service. Some might say he even had bone spurs in the spirit. But what he says is that his lips are unclean and the people he lives among have foul mouths as well. Nevertheless, he deems himself unfit to continue to serve. And it sounds familiar. But the angel places a burning coal on his mouth, telling him that his iniquity has been taken away and that his sin has been purged. I want you to know this morning that the day that you accepted Christ, He took away every excuse, every disqualification, and every pre-existing condition, whether it was sin or whether it was ceremonial uncleanliness that could ever serve as justification for you not to serve. God decides that Isaiah is worth it. He decided that you and I were worth it. So he sends the baptism of the Holy Spirit to remove our iniquity and to purge our sin. And there is but one thing left to do, and that is to be intentional about serving thereafter. You see, we serve an intentional God. We talked about intentionality this week regarding our walk, but we prefaced it with the verifiable idea that God makes the first act of intentionality and decisiveness towards us. The proof therein is found in the book of Jeremiah. I was saying to a friend this week, do you know that your birth is recorded in the Bible? In chapter 1 of Jeremiah, when God says, I knew you before you were formed in the womb, that means that as a divine thought of his, that even as he was forming Adam, he had you on his mind. When God was performing surgery on Adam in the creation of Eve, he had already seen every contraction that women would have, every hour of labor, every preemie that would be born and accepted into his bosom already, every stillborn baby. So the answer to when you were conceived and when I was conceived is not some summer night in June or July when you were but a twinkle in your daddy's eye. It was when the firmaments were being established, when dry land appeared, when the stars were being hung, when the waters had receded, when creeping things and beasts came upon the earth, and the signs for the seasons and the days and the years were created. I want you to know this morning that you, just like D'Angelo Lewis, you were on God's mind. God was intentional about my creation. He was intentional about what he placed in me. He knew me. He knew everything about me, my beginning, my end, my tolerance, my threshold for pain. The moment at which I would receive him, he knew me. I had to come to be after the lineages somewhere during the time when people were asking to touch my mother's belly. I want you to know that God touched it too. Because he said, before you came out of the womb, I sanctified thee. I called you mine. I set you apart. I purified and consecrated you to do a work with the vapor that I gave you, imbued with my divine breath, stifled at times only by your human frailty. When I pronounced to the host of heavens that you would do my work one day, I knew the capacity in which you would do it. He says, I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. And as a prophet, I didn't simply call you to be a seer. I called you to exhort. I called you to rebuke. I called you to root up and tear down and build up again. I called you to warn and to edify. But more so than anything, I called you into an intimate fellowship with me for the purpose of going out into the world as an ambassador to the nations. So I came to tell you this morning, when we talk about intentionality, when we talk about responding to the first decisions God made concerning our lives as far as me, there's been a shift. I wish I had the convenience that a lot of Christians enjoy, which is to tell God when and where and how I plan to serve. I wish I could tell God that I am no longer qualified to do what he created me to do, what he sanctified and anointed me to do, because I stumbled. If you hadn't figured it out yet, Isaiah is convicted by the presence of God and is confessing that, hey, God, I've said some things I shouldn't have said, and I've been keeping company with some unholy folk who do exactly the things that I do, and I know that because of that, you will strip me of my gifting. He says, I am undone. But God does for Isaiah what he has done for me so many times. He picks him up out of the muck and the mire, and he blows off the dirt with his divine breath like it's the 5-second rule. And he declares that Isaiah is still good. He says, no, I paid too much for you to simply throw you away. I invested too much in you to destroy you because of your human frailty. That would be counter to the notion that I knew you before I formed you in the womb. See, I knew that you would misstep. Do you think that I didn't hear you cussing, Isaiah? Don't you realize that every utterance is within earshot because I'm omnipresent? I knew you. I know you. And I know the plans I have towards you. I want to deal with one very small passage of text today. It's found at chapter 6, verse 8. And it reads as such. It says, also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? and who will go for us? Then said I, here I am, send me. I'm going to dive right into the revelations of this text. First, it says, also I heard the voice of the Lord. Even though Isaiah had unclean lips and though he believed he would no longer be able to serve, he is still counted as one of God's own. Doth not the text say, my sheep hear my voice? If Isaiah had so fallen out of the favor of God, he would not have been able to hear the command that was to come. So I want you to know that just because you stray, just because you fall down or fall away doesn't mean that God doesn't see you, doesn't mean that he doesn't love you and that he still can't use you. You just have to turn away from your wicked ways. You have to do like my mother used to say, come to yourself, such as the prodigal son did, and realize that you have turned away from God. He didn't turn away from you, and he is faithful to receive you unto himself and will gladly run out to the roadway to meet you, to embrace you, to restore you, and place the seal of his marriage to the backslider on your hand. And then he'll call for a celebration in your honor. And all of heaven will rejoice, for the one that was lost has now been found. That's how much he loves both you and I. But here's what happens. Somehow, someone, somewhere finds his way into your thinking, and he isolates you and he accuses you both day and night. He reminds you of your sin. He tells you all of the reasons that you aren't good enough, that you aren't qualified, that you'll never be as effective because you sinned, and you believe him. And God simply says, I'm calling to you. And the day that you hear my voice, harden not your heart. Come home. The next point that I saw is a word focus. Notice with me that it cites that the voice of the Lord says, not asks. Even though the phrasing of a question follows, God is commanding that someone should go. He is quite simply saying there is a word that must go forth because I've already preordained it to be so. And so I'm not asking who shall I send because I have called many. He is saying I've equipped angels and the host of heaven and earthly men. I have set aside a number of entities that might perform this task on behalf of the kingdom. So it isn't a question of who I want to send, for I will accomplish my word as I see fit. But instead, I look among those whom I've given so much, and I wait to see which of these will rise to the occasion with gladness and zeal to be sent. Often, as a father and as a parent, you can be in another room and maybe you need your cell phone, or maybe you need your pocketbook, mothers, or maybe you want a snack. And you have more than one child. And though they're all capable of getting you what you need, you think of the child which moves the quickest. Which child is always desirous of pleasing you? Which child doesn't necessarily have to be rewarded to do what you need done at a moment's notice? You call on the child that will stop what they're doing and go retrieve what you require without question. And then that's the child in whom you are well pleased. It's the same with God. God has a wealth of work that needs to be done in the kingdom, and in his omniscience, he thinks about the character of his children, and he yells out, I need this done, in order to see which of his sons or daughters will run to do it simply for the sake of pleasing their father. Next point to consider is the Lord says, who will go for us? In other words, who will volunteer? You can be called, you can be chosen, gifted, anointed, set aside, but yet be found hiding amongst the congregation of believers, hoping that your unit doesn't get called up to action. Who will go for us means who is ready to fight. Who is truly prepared to engage in the warfare being waged against the kingdom of God? Warfare breaks out in your church, in your community, and even sometimes at the threshold of your doorstep, and you are still spiritually peeping through the blinds. You see, you think you're safe. You think if no one sees you, if you don't have to serve or use your gift, if you don't serve, then you can't mess up anything or be blamed for a mistake. So you peep out of the blinds while the actual battle is being waged. You've heard people that are engaged in the live fire talk about the cost. And you think that if you don't say or do too much, then the enemy will leave you and your family and your little possessions alone. I want you to know this morning it doesn't work like that. No, instead, what happens is the enemy sees the curtain move and he starts firing darts at your home because he knows that you are supposed to be engaged in the battle. Satan is a bully, and bullies love to attack people that will not fight back. You see, you have to be deliberate and intentional when you serve God. You can't be deliberate but still be deliberating. You can't live intentionally yet be intimidated, and you'll never be victorious while vacillating. It's time to get into the fight. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I gotta go. When no members of the angelic host raise their hand, when no earthly men of renown call out to respond to the charge, it is Isaiah that raises his hand and says, here am I, send me. There is a profound, definitive difference in accepting your call and volunteering. Notice that God doesn't reveal the where or the what. He had only asked, who would go for us? Of all the people who have received a dispensation of unmerited favor, of the 7 billion names I call each morning, of those whom I consecrated and sanctified and anointed prophets unto the nations, no one raises their hand but the one who first thought himself to be disqualified. God says, I'm looking for a few good men. Who will go for us? Who will represent the kingdom? You see, volunteerism is another level of submission and separation. And that's the shift that I'm in. God, send me. I'll go. I don't need to know where I'm going. I don't need to know why I'm going. Just tell me what to say when I get there, God. For I know that you have placed the words in my mouth already. I will not be afraid of men in their faces. When you volunteer, it removes the ideology of reluctance. And it also circumcises the flesh when resistance and regret attempt to rear their head. In the same breath that you say, I wish I hadn't, you finish with, but this is what I signed up for. What we have today is that many people have signed up for kingdom warfare for mammon. Some signed up for titles, some signed up for prestige among men, and then they started getting hit with live ammo and rescinded their voluntarism, even becoming deserters. But the Bible says it would have been better never to have made a vow than to make one and not keep it. When you got saved, you took an oath to fight against the enemy, to go into all the world preaching the gospel, and now you've gone AWOL. I came to tell you this morning that it has to be mind over matter, like they used to tell us in the Marine Corps. If you don't mind, then it doesn't matter. Here am I, Lord. I'm waving my hands and I'm saying a word. I've learned that there are two kinds of people where it regards battle. When a fight breaks out, you have people that run away from the fight, and then you've got folks that run towards the action. The latter are the people that say, I gotta go. You've done so much for me, I gotta go. You saved my children, so I gotta go. You picked me up and you turned my life around. You placed my feet on solid ground, so I gotta go. The kingdom is under heavy fire right now, so I gotta go. There's pestilence in the land, so I gotta go. Racism is at a fever pitch, so I gotta go. I've been guilty. I have asked God to open doors before during different seasons of my life, but I bound the hands of his blessing by dictating where I wanted to be and the conditions upon which I was willing to serve. No, when you are a soldier, particularly when you are a soldier in the army of God. You receive orders and you go where you're told. We have too many Christians trying to dictate their duty stations. You simply need to be intentional about your obedience, your submission, and your yes. I don't care what it looks like in this season. Here am I, Lord, send me. I know you never lost track of where I was. I'm just letting you know that my availability has changed. Here am I, Lord, send me. When people question, you willing to go all the way, cut them off and say, I gotta go. But what about, I gotta go? How much are they going, I gotta go. You just go up and, I gotta go. Your confession from right where you are this morning should be, God, I'm done dictating to you what you can do with me. I'm done acting as though I know what's best for me. Never again will I tell you what to do with what you have invested in me. I submit. Here, my Lord, with my hands waving. Send me. My answer will be yes. I don't have a choice. I gotta go. God bless you and your family.